What is up, you guys, and welcome back to Unusual Tips and Tricks, Episode 2. This series focuses mainly on some good to know tidbits and sneaky tricks to help you guys get an advantage the next time you're in the fog. Without stretching the intro any further, let's get into it. Here's a scenario. The Leatherface has charged his chainsaw and is swinging it towards you. You don't have enough time to make it to a window or a pallet, and all you have is a locker. Did you know that you can use that locker to survive the chainsaw and get more time to hopefully make it to a pallet or a window? While this sounds like a rare situation, it really isn't. And you will find use for this Bubba locker tech more often than you would imagine, and it can mean the difference between going down instantly or looping for 5 gens. But how exactly does it work? Let me break it down for you. When Bubba hits a wall, he goes into a tantrum state, and the duration of this tantrum depends on how many charges you use before hitting the wall. This means, as a survivor, you will need to know how many charges he must have used to know exactly when to jump out of the locker. And while this can sound impossible, why don't we break this down further to see if we can increase our chances of pulling this off. Let's start off with the easiest, and possibly the most common one you'll see, the 3 charge tantrum. To know when to jump out, you will need to count the number of swipes he makes when stunned, and once the number reaches 10, hop off the locker and he will not be able to recover quick enough to grab you. To explain why I said 3 charge is the easiest to dodge, we need to know how a 2 charge tantrum works and how to counter it. Let's have a look at it. There seems to be a very noticeable difference in the swipe speed between the 2 and the 3 charge tantrum. The 3 charge has a faster swipe speed as opposed to the 2 charge, and this allows us to predict exactly whether the Bubba used a 2 charge or a 3 charge tantrum before colliding with the locker. To counter a 2 charge tantrum, count his swipes till 5 and then jump off as he starts the 6th one. More often than not, it's usually a 2 or a 3 charge tantrum that you will have to deal with, as the Leatherface just doesn't cover a lot of distance with 1 charge. And as mentioned earlier, you can tell the difference between 2 and 3 based on the swipe speed. While this is all you might need, we will still see what we can do against a 1 charge. This is where things get a bit more complicated. The first thing to know when it comes to a 1 charge Bubba is there are 2 animations. A slow swipe reminiscent of a 2 charge tantrum and a fast swipe reminiscent of a 3 charge tantrum, and before you ask, no, they are not random. The slow animation happens if there are any unused charges before you hit a wall, and the fast animation happens if you have none, but still, they both last the same amount of time. To counter a 1 charge slow animation, count till 4 swipes and then hop off as the 5th starts. To counter a 1 charge fast animation, count till 6 swipes before you leave the locker. I understand that this whole thing can sound complicated to a lot of players, so my suggestion would be to not worry about 1 charge tantrums, but instead focus on learning to counter 2 and 3 charges. Because if you take the slowdown while charging the chainsaw into account, Bubba doesn't gain a whole lot of distance from using 1 charge, even with add-ons. And as a survivor, you should be able to maintain sufficient distance to force him to use 2 or more charges to be able to reach you. Let us now have a look at some more examples of where a locker can be useful. Against the artist, you can instantly repel the swarm of crows by quickly hopping into and exiting the locker. You can hop inside a locker and be completely immune to Doctor's static blast effects like screaming and madness tear up. And if you are fully infected against a Wesker, you can simply hop inside a locker once he starts charging his tentacles and hop off once he lets go of it, and he will not be able to recover quick enough to grab you, thereby rendering him unable to insta-down. One effective technique against Wraith, especially a fast pallet breaking one, is dropping the pallet early and then to slide back and forth over it. This disallows the killer from being able to break the pallet and is forced to uncloak to make the survivor stop sliding. It is possible that the Wraith, instead of completely uncloaking, decides to bait the uncloak, and if that's the case, try calling his bluff by continuing to slide even as he uncloaks the second time around. But either way, the killer still wastes more time than he normally has to per pallet, which you buy your teammates crucial seconds to finish the gen. Remember that this is not a foolproof method. Factors like ping and input latency play a huge role, and it is definitely possible for the killer to break the pallet before you can slide, but there is no harm in trying, is there? The same thing is applicable for window vaults as well. As the Wraith is cloaked, the chase doesn't start, and therefore the window will not get blocked no matter how many times you vault over. However, the same limitations as the pallet slide still apply here as well. When you think of perks that goes well with Plague, the obvious choices would be Thanatophobia, Hex Plating, or pretty much every gen defense perk in the game that also goes well with other killers. But here's some interesting choices to consider that you probably did not know about already. Play with your food is one of Michael's 3 unique perks that lets you move 5% faster per token up to 3 tokens every time you let the obsession escape from the chase. While the description states that performing a basic or a special attack consumes 1 token, did you know that the Plague doesn't actually lose tokens for using a green Wild Purge? You can puke on the survivor as much as you want, and you can even get them infected, and you will still keep your stacks. Unfortunately, the same is not true for her red Corrupt Purge, and you will still lose stacks for using it even if you don't hit any survivors. But personally, I don't think it matters as much. The speed you gain from Play with your food makes it extremely easy to infect the survivors wherever they are, and once you are fully infected, all you will need to do is use 1 stack to get it down, unless you go for grabs of course, in which case you will not use any. This makes Play with your food a really solid choice on Plague, and I would recommend you try it out for yourselves. The other perk that has a bit of synergy with Plague is Terminus. One common tactic you often see against a Plague is survivors waiting to cleanse until the last gen is done. This means the odds of survivors being injured as the final gen is done is higher for Plague when compared with most other killers with the exception of Legion, and as a result, you are more likely to see value from this perk. Remember that the survivor will be notified if Terminus is in play, and if they still decide to cleanse, they give the killer a free Corrupt Fountain for nothing in return. You might already know that the counter to Dredge's teleport is locking lockers. But did you know that if there are 2 lockers next to each other, you only need to lock one of them? This is because the Dredge doesn't get to choose which of the 2 lockers it teleports to, and will always teleport to the locked one. Once he teleports and breaks the lock, he will not be able to M1 the lock on the nearby locker, and the survivor can just go to it and lock it. And if the Dredge decides to teleport again, he will once again end up in the locked one and will have to break through, thereby slowing him down even further. If you lock both lockers at the same time, the Dredge can simply teleport to it, break the lock to exit, and then M1 the other one, and it makes it much easier for him to catch you off guard the next time he decides to teleport to the locker. The exact same technique is applicable for when there are 3 lockers together, the only difference being you get 3 locks to work with instead of 2. That is it for today, guys. I hope you learned something new. I live stream on Twitch every day playing Dead by Daylight and a bunch of other games, so if you are interested, you can always pop on by and say hello. The link is in the description. With that said, if you like what you saw, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. Thumbs down if you disliked it. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.